Welcome to CarePod, a safe place to educate, inspire, and renew the caregiver. Listen in with our host, Dr. Kiplee Bell, as she interviews different experts along the caregiving journey.
Hi, everyone. So I have a great treat as we've closed out National Caregivers Month, but in these parts, we're always all things caregiving. And I'm really happy to sit with Neil Shaw, game changer. I love game changers. I love people that come into the space and say, okay, let's talk solutions. We've whined enough. Let's create solutions. So very happy to have him, CEO of Care Yaya, okay? Amazing. Connects students to act in the caregiver role to support the families. So with no further ado, thank you, Neil, for joining me today. Thank you for being a part of the CarePod audience, and just welcome.
Dr. Al, thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate that warm introduction, and I'm really excited to talk about what all we can do together to solve the caregiving crisis.
Absolutely. So I begin every episode, I ask my guests their why. We spoke a little bit offline about my kind of experience of saying, hey, I'm in the know. I caregive my mother who's 89. She turns 89 Sunday, a matter of fact.
Oh.
And my aunt is 96. Okay.
Wow.
Done old for a long time.
Yeah.
Mama's a retired nurse, did home care, elderly, private duty nursing as a child. So I've witnessed this kind of act of caregiving from both a professional and personal experience throughout my lifetime, and found myself exasperated by our systems. So I'm really, really curious about your why and really anxious to kind of dive into your platform.
Sure. My why is very personal, actually. I, unlike yourself with a lot of background in the industry, I did not have any exposure to caregiving until it suddenly happened to me in my early to mid 30s. Kind of my background was I was previously in the finance industry. I grew up in North Carolina. I was living in New York City in my 20s and 30s, and I was running an investment fund. And then suddenly I became a caregiver in my early 30s for my grandfather through a really long and exhausting journey, dementia, cognitive decline, kidney failure, dialysis, cancer, and then end of life care, where, I helped navigate the family, through kind of care and care support. And I saw my mother take the majority of the direct care burden. And it really woke me up to how broken our kind of home care system is, how these localized, franchise agencies are not paying the caregivers enough, charging the families a lot of money. And, the guilt and pressure that comes on the family members from that, we dealt with a lot of stress and heartache and ended up doing a lot of it ourselves. And then shortly after he passed, my wife became severely ill and went through years of intense cancer treatment and multiple different therapies and, some failed surgeries and et cetera. And then I became primary caregiver and had to leave behind my career to do it full time. And,
wow.
Both experiences were just like, it's a very difficult, care system that we have. And it's tricky to navigate. You can't always find good quality help. Affordability is a big issue. So yeah, it was very personal. And, after that whole journey, thankfully, knock on wood, she finally had a successful outcome and has been in remission for a few years. At that point, I became obsessed, I'd gone through care for so long and not only seen my own family struggles, but many other families I met through all the caregiver support groups, cancer support groups, et cetera. I saw all these families were struggling with it. So yeah, just became kind of inspired of I think there's something we could do.
Amazing. So a couple of things I want to unpack there, because we have these buckets, right? We have the millennial, we have the 30 something or just about 30 that, we say what, get the life insurance while it's cheap, or, have the conversations now. I was that 30 something that was proud of myself. Hey, I retired mom. Great. But I didn't have the tools to know at that time, wow, I need to have difficult conversations. Mom, what does this chapter look like for you? What's successful aging for you, et cetera? How do we equip that bucket of people to say, you got to think about it. I know you're 30. I know you're ready to take on the world, you know, but I recently interviewed a thought leader saying that she is a director of a youth organization that the millions of caregivers that are children that are in this kind of cohort that are caregiving that we don't oftentimes touch. So, what's your impact or ways in which you kind of bridge that gap in your space by connecting this cohort to elder people, but also empowering them to prepare?
Yeah, great question. And I think, think through things like your podcast, I think we really need to build awareness among society more broadly about what's going on. I think that, society in some way has like this subtle ageist attitude where everybody ages, but no one wants to talk about it. No one wants to hear about it. It's just a reality of life. If you're lucky enough to live to 80, 90, even 70, you might have cognitive limitations. You might have some physical limitations, and there's no shame in it. It's just like natural part of life. There's no shame in, needing help. I think this is something that many of us will go through. And I think that compared to how many people it impacts, it's massively under discussed. To your point about the youth caregiving firsthand, there's tons of, 14-year-olds that are taking care of mom with multiple sclerosis. And then they do that. And then they go off to school and then they come back and they do that. And it's not like there's a couple dozen. It's like there are literally hundreds of thousands or millions of people dealing with that, and yeah, it's just not talked about. And I think it's because maybe the society has a very attitude towards youth and not thinking about being older, not thinking about being sick. But I think if you kind of brought that to forefront through media, through social media, just through normal part of the discussion, it would help people prepare and get realistic attitudes. And then I think to your point, getting people involved, like through our program, a lot of college students are involved in caregiving. And they're learning like, oh, this might be something that my own parents go through, my grandparents go through, I myself might go through. And I think once you have kind of like that reality check, then it makes you a little more thoughtful and more prepared, So yeah, I think getting
Absolutely.
people involved, doing advocacy,
Yeah.
media, all those. Yeah.
Yeah. And speaking to our multi-generational ways in which we care, the ways in which we give care, we learn empathy, we learn, just interpersonal communication that this generation is touted for not having, but yet they have an
Yeah.
instinct and an intuition that they're not often given credit for. So yeah, I think that's just it's
Yes.
so important. So
Agreed. And I think that too. Oh, sorry.
no,
Go
go
ahead.
ahead, go ahead,
Yeah.
go ahead.
I was going to say to your point, what I've observed from the younger generation as, we are equipping them to be caregivers is I actually think that they actually have like a real optimism towards doing things that are socially impactful and positive and like wanting to change the world. Sometimes they're just not given the opportunity. So I think that you're right. Like the stereotype might be that, oh, they're on their social media. They have lost some of the communication skills and the empathy building skills. But it's also like, have they been given a chance? And then I'm very pleasantly surprised when you take somebody who is 20 years old and in college and studying biology and then put them in to take care of a 75, 80-year-old person with dementia just to be a companion to help do activities with them. I mean, the amount of empathy is like surprising, that's like really, really positive attitude. The relationships building are like mutually beneficial, not just that they are caring for someone, but that someone is advising and mentoring them and telling them about the life stories. And we are seeing students like just completely go out of the way. We hear these stories all the time that, 79-year-old lady who's being cared for by a college student, the daughter will say, oh, Christy came by on Saturday when there wasn't even a care session scheduled and just dropped off some, cupcakes and
Cookies
baked
or
goods for my mom. Yeah. And it's like
I
stuff
love
like
it.
real relationships are building, and these are becoming kind of like almost like proxy grandparents, wherever they are in college. So yeah, it's really cool to see. So I think if you give people a chance, then you can like really see the types of empathy that they can display.
Absolutely. And transparent leadership, right? And
Yeah,
direction. Like we can't
yeah,
complain about it if we don't steer it.
yeah, yeah.
So
Great,
that's huge. It's
great
huge. It's
point.
huge. It's
Yeah,
huge. The next bucket now is the employer.
sure.
So we have, FMLA, we have parental leave, but I think that there needs to be a bucket to understand persons like you and I. So here you are, this
Yeah,
30-year-old uber
yeah,
success, in New York. And now it's like, whoa, like life has to stop or, or I have to make a massive pivot. But maybe if we reframed what age looks like and what the caregiver journey looks like in the
Yeah.
workplace, and we developed accommodations for people to care.
Yeah.
You know, there maybe if those options were available, things would have been different, even for you or I.
Oh, 1,000%. And there's a case study out from Harvard Business Review called The Caring Company, and they surveyed a couple of thousand employers and thousands of employees at these companies. And the biggest gap in what employees need and could benefit from versus what HR offers is elder care or caregiver support. 33% of working employees across this massive, multi-thousand person survey at Harvard Business School said 33% said, I would like some sort of caregiving benefit. Less than 6% of employers have anything. And most of those is just care navigation, like social support, not actual care. So it is the biggest gap in benefits. And I think it's going to be a big issue in kind of HR and company leadership over the next few years because our population is aging very fast. The middle-aged workforce, sandwich generation, as you'd call it, is strapped both caring for children and aging parents. And these are the workers of the country. And if you don't have the support, people are going to drop out of the workforce in very large numbers.
It's
Yeah,
clutch,
great point.
so clutch. I definitely see my light bulbs are going off because there's so much collaboration here. But yes, it's so important to, I was joking with a colleague the other day. I said, I don't want a pizza party. Like, I don't want, Doctor Appreciation Day. Like what are the tangible ways that we can really show the carer care? So there's that bucket. And then now let's get to the nugget of your platform. So you're in this space, you said, okay, I've been on this journey a long time. I have the ability and the know-how to create a solution. And so tell us about Care, all the things, take us through both a corporate way from organizational for the organizations in my audience that say, wow, I want to partner with them on this, that have a student population, et cetera, and or if the layman fit personal family caregiver, how they connect and walk the journey.
Yeah, sure. So our solution is, fairly simple and straightforward. We run a Uber-like platform where families around the country can go to our site, careii.org, and in less than 2 minutes, book care sessions for aging parents or spouses, that are living with serious illness, cognitive decline, going through cancer, et cetera. And you will then go through our process and then be matched with caregivers near you. Best of all, the caregivers are all college students pursuing careers in the healthcare field. So people who want to be doctors, nurses, physician assistants, physical therapists, occupational therapists. So, people who really have a vested interest in want to pursue caring careers. And this is almost like a pathway program for them to care for people in their community. Other unique features, we charge 0 fees or markups. So it's full on social enterprise. We're privately funded. Initially, it was just funding it myself. And then over time, we ended up having some grants and angel investors backing us. But so it's the most affordable care in most markets. It's between 17 to 20 bucks an hour. And then people just pay the student directly. We're not even processing the transactions. So it's become like really cool from like a delivering highly affordable care, connecting families with students. We also do a lot of work on the back end. We background check every student. We do interviews with them and we verify enrollment at the universities. So we're typically getting the students from professors and career advisors at most schools. And then we also do similar background checking and verification on the family side. So it's like a pretty safety first, secure platform that then is available for free to use. And then it's a win-win. Families are getting great care experiences in most markets. Traditional agency-based home care might be like $30 to $35, $40 an hour, depending on if you're in a big city like New York or San Francisco. So through Care, people are getting it at 30 to 40% lower cost. It's companion level care only, for now, because we don't want the students doing more clinical stuff. But over time, we're learning that many of the students do have training, so we might kind of launch a different offering. And then I would say scale and scope is probably the biggest. That we have gone from a grassroots effort where we started in our home base in Raleigh, Durham, North Carolina, 2.5 years ago or so, with the first 50 students and the 100 students. And in the last, I'd say 6 to 9 months, it's blown up around the country. We now have over 25,000 students on it. We're at over
Amazing.
30 universities. Yeah, we're in places like New York, Boston, San Francisco, San Diego, parts of Texas, Florida, et cetera. It's spreading all over. So yeah, it's pretty
Oh,
cool to see the
it's
impact.
amazing. It gives me chills because you know what? It's your grandfather's legacy.
Hmm.
Like I
Yeah,
can't. It's your grandfather's legacy.
yeah,
I can't. It's
yeah.
just
Thanks.
I
Yeah, yeah,
just, yeah, I'm sorry. That's just, it's
yeah,
amazing. Like, can we have a
yeah.
moment, really? Like, that is amazing.
Thanks. Thank
Amazing
you.
work, really.
Thank you.
This February, celebrate Black excellence, unity, and empowerment at the Impactful Black Collective. On February 22nd, 2025, join us at the Hilton Inn in Hamilton, New Jersey for an evening that will heal, empower, and educate. Network with trailblazers, showcase your business, and be inspired by powerful presentations designed to uplift our community. Vendors, don't miss out on your chance to shine. Limited spaces are available to connect your brand with passionate, like-minded individuals. Together, we celebrate history. Together, we build the future. Impactful Black Collective. Heal, empower, educate. Get your tickets now and secure your spot. Let's make an impact this February.
So do you satisfy volunteer hours? So,
Good.
most, medical
Yeah.
schools, physician assistants, so forth, nurse practitioner, et cetera, have free student needs
Yes.
volunteer hours to satisfy.
Yeah, yes, it
Although
satisfies
they're
volunteer hours
paid.
where occasionally the students will do it for free, so we kind
Okay.
of prefer that the students get paid because one thing we noticed is that, students from more wealthy backgrounds will do more volunteer. And then so you want to kind of like discriminate through the platform on that. So
Mm-hmm.
we strongly prefer that the students get paid, but
Mm-hmm.
occasionally students will just say, okay, I'm going to do it for no paid. So it does satisfy for some students volunteer hours.
Mm-hmm.
But for most students, it just satisfies care experience, so like
Mm-hmm.
PCE hours, many times people have to do for physician assistant school. That's a big one. And, this is learning for me. I didn't realize how much the physician assistant schools have become so difficult and competitive to get into now that
Mm-hmm.
many of them are requiring 1,000, and then some are saying 2,000 or 3,000 to be competitive. So many of these
Mm-hmm.
students are doing like 1 to 3 gap years after graduation just to get that care experience. So it really
Mm-hmm.
satisfies and counts towards that. And then for other students, it's just like something nice to do, upskill themselves, build relationships. And, number one thing we hear from people at, like, let's say some of the undergraduate nursing schools is prior to Caregiver starting, they were doing DoorDash, or they were doing Uber, kind of they wanted flexible schedule work, but they couldn't get anything in their field of interest, caring, and now they can. So yeah, it's been pretty cool. And then some people stay on and do it during gap year, which is amazing, because then they can
Yeah.
do a lot more care.
It's amazing, amazing.
Yeah,
And that there is this, like I joke, my mom will text you,
yeah,
but her text etiquette is literally like paragraphs of,
yeah.
she'll send you a
Yes,
dissertation,
yeah,
but hey, she texts, my aunt Jen texts at 96. So to
yeah,
be able to have this kind of multi-generational learning capacity is
yes.
beautiful too. So that's
Agreed.
that's really cool. So tell us about the matching process. Like, how do you have any kind of special magic around, connecting personalities or interests, etc.?
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Great question. So we're at heart, like really a technology company. So we're getting
Hmm.
so much data. And in the
Hmm.
early days, the matching was much more just based on availability nearby and who's available at those days and times. Now, as we progress and we learn a lot from the care sessions, one of the beauties of this is that each care session is mutually rated by both the student and the family with 0 to 5 star rating, and then detailed reviews of kind of how people like the care session, what could be better, et cetera. And pleased to say now, after tens of thousands of care sessions, the average rating is like 4.87 out of 5. So it's like people are very highly satisfied with the care that's going on. But we also learn through that of what, for example, to your point about personalities. So we're building a lot of AI to kind of scrape through the data. And then now we're able to better predict, what they would call it kind of in the field, like predictive analytics, like figure out as somebody onboards now and, the son or daughter writes in a detailed description of mom or dad, we ask about personality, things they like to do, blah, blah. we can now have a decently accurate prediction of which caregivers nearby that are available then will be more suited, and just like very simple things like, okay, if they like to read, they're a little more quieter, blah, blah, then, okay, we know these students have done well with that type of person before, so they're more likely to do well. And then, of course, it's iterative where it's learning after the first session, after the second session. So yeah, the matches are becoming way more personalized and streamlined. And I think that's kind of like the beauty of like data and predictive analytics. Same with like availability and scheduling. That's becoming almost to the point where when we first started, it took, let's say today is Wednesday, and if somebody were to book a care session for next Tuesday, it might fill in a few days. It's getting faster and faster now because we're able to predict. So if somebody today came in and booked something for tomorrow, it'll likely fill because it would know who's available then. So we're trying to, it's becoming almost like Uber, where it's like a data company. Mm-hmm. And I think it would be nice one day to have it available, even where you could on the spot book and need somebody 3 hours from now, and that could be available. So that would be like the holy grail.
Because then those people that are kind of hanging out there and say, you know what, I can give 3 hours today, and, maybe you have a young concept, a youth, a multi-generational concept, but maybe that also looks like a retiree, a young old that says, you know what, I want to give my time. So
agreed.
I love it.
Yeah.
Love it. Love it. Love it. So what's the goal in terms of the future of the organization? Franchising, or how do you branch out into other states, et cetera?
Yeah. So the goal is to kind of like build it more like centralized, like similar to kind of like these technology platforms like Airbnb or Uber, where like you're running an online marketplace in multiple geographies. I think with our cost goal of being, we just want to be a very, very low cost and affordable care provider that ideally, if we could pull it off in a dream, we would never charge any fee to families and never take any money from the students' pockets, which obviously is like we're doing it now, but it's like not sustainable. I'll just say full transparency, right? We're just burning money, delivering a free thing. But I think it's possible in the medium to long term. And this is, where I think to your point about societal shift in care and who pays for care happens. I think by partnering with employers and ultimately the dream, getting it all the way to Medicare, I think that is how you can build a sustainable enterprise that then delivers a free to consumer solution forever. And, I think it's like, because we're already streamlining a lot on the cost side, I think if we partner with employers and kind of give them access, and, I kind of also think from an ethical perspective, like it's easier to have like businesses and government pay, like they should be interested in the care of the population than to force fees on families where then you're pricing people out. So I think that would be kind of like the ultimate goal. Is I'd love to, in the next 1 to 3 years, start partnering with small, mid-sized employers, one day even larger employers who realize that care needs for their employee population are critical, and then take it all the way up to Medicare. I think it's a absolute tragedy that Medicare is just funneling over so much money to dementia drugs, which, I'm not a professional in that field, but I observe from families, the advocacy is not very high. And $30,000 a year on XYZ drug equals tens of billions, if not hundreds of billions, funneled out from Medicare to Big Pharma. And, how much do you get if you're caring for your mom or dad? Zero, like they're paying nothing.
That's it.
That's it. So I think that's, if you just gave 30,000 to the family and said, you decide, do you want to pay for this drug or do you want to buy an entire year of home care? Maybe a lot of people would say, okay, I want to just get care support. So I think that that's probably one of the biggest gaps in our society, is that there's funding is going to pharmaceutical solutions for Alzheimer's dementia, which have very low efficacy. Funding is going to assisted living, which, is a need for many, but cost is not low. And home care funding is none, and I think that's going to have to change with the aging population.
Absolutely.
And with people's desires to stay in place.
I was going to say, and aging at home. Aging at home. Yeah. Oh, we got a lot to talk about.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Well, I am so happy to have the honor to sit with you to hear about your just amazing brain and how you've taken this beautiful concept and put it out into the marketplace, because it's already helping so many, but the potential is tremendous. So what if it is a family that's out of your scope in terms of out of the geographic area? What does that look like?
So right now, when families come out of scope geographic area, we see if more than a few people come to it, and then we expand into that area. So beauty of this is we have found backwards, like for example, in a place like San Diego, people would book and then we're like, well, it's technically not available right now. But then a handful of people book. And then we're like, okay, we know people at San Diego State and UCSD. Then we would reach out and start onboarding and then we'd open up the market that way. So please to say in most areas, that's doable. The unfortunate reality is in some areas it's not doable, which are actually the highest needs areas, which are rural populations, where large universities often don't exist. So we've been thinking about rolling it out to community colleges. But I'd say maybe that's like, we need a little more funding and more people on the team. But I think that might eventually be a solution, to cover that gap. And then otherwise, we would just look for care providers in that area and just like make a reference or a recommendation. So that's been something we've been kind of thinking about. But right now, we're like using the demand to inform where to build, because on the student side, there's demand from students all over the country to do this.
Got you. And so, so basically everybody can funnel to you through the website. Like if you're an organization, if you are a thought leader at an institution, a hospital, a university, et cetera, and you say, hey, this is amazing. Even from a residency program, I see. I mean, there's a lot, potential here. So everyone would essentially reach you through the website.
Yes. Yeah. Through the site.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So careyaya.org. So any final thoughts, anything you'd like to share?
No, I mean, I think, if people want to contact me directly, I'm pretty active on LinkedIn. So, it's Neil Shah Careyaya on LinkedIn. So people are welcome to send me a message personally there. And then, I think that I'm very excited for the opportunity. Thanks for having me. I think my final thought and vision kind of from what does the country look like in 2030, from an aging perspective? I think that aging in place is going to happen. People really want that as kind of their goal as they get older and towards end of life. I think the facility-based care is like skyrocketing in cost. So I think more and more people want to stay at home. I think that workforce shortages are going to get way worse, right? Our population pyramid, as you'd call it, is, the statistics are pretty shocking of how fast the population is aging and how few middle-aged people there are to take care of them. So you're going to have to do things like bring younger people in. And then I think technology, I think that is a big solution. The dream here would be to use technology, upskill the college student population to be kind of mini clinical workers going out in the field and not just doing care, but doing cognitive checkups, doing cardiology checkups and kind of like doing full out health monitoring by equipping them with digital tools. I think they would love it. I think a lot of these digital tools are being accelerated in their approvals. And I think Medicare is going to start shifting about thinking how it pays for care. And this is the cheaper way to pay for care. And it still integrates a human touch, so you have remote health monitoring, but you have a human interaction, which we don't want to lose in the care of our loved ones. Absolutely. Well, thank you so much. Thank you for taking the time. Thanks, Dr. Bell. I really appreciate it.
Yes, absolutely.
Appreciate the opportunity.
Great information right from the source. For more information on how to caregive like a boss, check out impactfulcaregiving.com. Want to be a guest on the show? Contact us at CarePod at impactfulcaregiving.com.